please help us out. So now we're going to transition, and we're going to get Carl over here. And you know, we're nice and cozy here. So Carl, you can maneuver your way around here. Come on in.
All right.
Come on in. So just to let you know and remind you, this is the Chips N Salsa show. We're live on Facebook. Normally we're also on YouTube, but George Ortiz is not here. He had to work, so we're not going to be on YouTube this time around. I don't know if we can get the show recorded there and uploaded. Try. Sarah, Super Sarah, is helping us, and I don't even know if you got to meet Sarah, but this is Super Sarah.
Hi, Sarah.
Hi, nice to meet you.
She's my great niece.
Oh,
she's great
isn't
also
that
as well.
nice?
Ladies and gentlemen, those of you that follow us already know this man. He needs no introduction, but I'm going to introduce him. This is my good friend, Dr. Carl Patraso.
We did a show together for a couple of years, actually, didn't we? Yes.
Dream interpreter, forensic psychologist, author, wonderful guy that I got to know through my producer job at KFYI. Then I did a Sun Sounds show that I invited him to come on, and since then we've just been really, really good friends.
Yes.
And very blessed to have him back once again.
Got me interested in radio, and a few times we had a tight squeeze and you covered for me. I appreciate that. I had to fly back to Chicago a couple of times, so thank you so very much. I wanted to talk a little bit about my new book.
Oh, good.
Which is my
Did you
third
bring
book.
Props?
No, I didn't.
I should have reminded him. But
well, the new book isn't finished yet. It's still in the works. I started out writing a book actually, and as you know, what I'm learning as an author is that I tend to like to take concepts of political and social change and marry those with political concepts. So with psychological concepts. So my books have a lot to do with social and political issues as they relate to psychological issues. As in Dreaming for Success, I talked about how your dreams have to do with your everyday life and the people that you know and the life that you lead. In the book, Happy in a Hostile World, I talked about how the family is changing, how the workplace is changing, how the society is changing in terms of becoming more violent, and how this affects our ability to be happy and what we need to do in order to maintain our balance within the society. With this third book, I started out talking about self-acceptance. I wanted to write a book about self-acceptance. And as I started my own research into self-acceptance, one of the things that authors kept on saying is that self-acceptance has to do with accepting all parts of yourself. So the
that
good,
can be
the
really
bad,
hard
the
already,
ugly.
just to think about that.
It's very hard. Yes, it is. And as I was working with this, I suddenly began to realize that we live in a society where we're not really taught self-acceptance. In fact, we live in a political environment where self-acceptance is very much manipulated. And I think one of the dramatic things that our society is going through is we are going through a shift in morality, in what is right and what is wrong, what you can accept and what you can't accept. For example, if you think about the Romans had a sense of morality, what their morality was. That's hard to believe, but ancient people did. What happened in Roman society when Christianity came along? There was a shift in the idea of what was right and what was wrong. And this shift dramatically changed human history and dramatically changed and ended in many ways the Roman Empire. What are we experiencing? We're experiencing a relationship between, and this sounds very conspiratorial, and when I talk about it, I tend to get sort of say, now Carl, get a hold of yourself.
Okay.
But nonetheless, I think the Democratic Party, along with the media, and we haven't started yet with corporations, is looking to shift our morality of what is right and what is wrong.
I agree.
For example, we might say when it comes to immigration that a country should have reasonable immigration laws and that we should, yes, take people in, but control the way we take people in. Now, if someone says that and you say, well, you're a racist, what are you saying? You're saying you're an immoral person. There's something wrong with your morality. There's something wrong with your sense of what is right and what is wrong. And you need to get your own sense of what is right and what is wrong in line with the reality of right and wrong. And if you look down so many political issues, misogyny, nationalism, xenophobia, homophobia, all of these terms being used so liberally are really an attempt not only to silence people, but to do more than that, to create a new way of thinking, a new idea of what is right and wrong, and at a deeper psychological level to manipulate your guilt.
Control, yeah.
And so I think we're kind of going through this, and this is actually what the new book is about. So anyway, I thought I'd...
Yeah, no, I mean, that opens it up, and people that follow politics, like me, the political junkie, and I know that you've turned into a hardcore political junkie yourself. I can hardly wait to read that book. When are you gonna finish it?
Soon, I hope. I just sent the first part of the book to a friend of mine who's going to review it for editing and whatnot. And I'm working now on the second part of the book. And all of my books are similar in that they talk about what is the problem and then what can we do about the problem. And so the second part of the book really talks about self-acceptance and the fact that in order not to become a political pawn and not to be swallowed up by this, we have to learn to become more self-accepting about what we feel and what we think, and to take ownership of that.
So I have to ask you a question. I'm thinking about the self-acceptance. I think one of the things that has maybe become a negative in our society, when I was younger, you wanted to be self-confident, and then we changed that wording, and it's like it's not confident. Self-esteem, and I think self-esteem is different than self-confidence, because if you acceptance, self-esteem can turn into you're very kind of a little bit full of yourself, I think, and you're the psychologist, so maybe you can explain that to me. But I always like. When I was younger, you strive to be self-confident more than the self-esteem. Am I confusing the two too much, or what do you?
No. What it comes down to, one of the things that I learned as a therapist in years of doing therapy, being a humanistic therapist, is that I would get patients and they would say to me, I'm really depressed. I'm really angry, but let's say fearful, I'm depressed, and this is horrible. I shouldn't feel this way. This is terrible that I feel this way. What's wrong with me that I feel this way?
Were they getting depressed about being depressed?
Well, that's exactly what's happening. And a lot of times within therapy, what you would say is, well, why are you depressed? Well, I lost my job. I'm going through a very tough period in my marriage. And I've never really experienced this before. We're having some financial difficulties. And so the issue becomes, well, maybe it's okay to be depressed. Maybe what you're going through is kind of a normal part of emotional life. And maybe that depression in some way is something that you need to be doing right now in order to get through this, to think about this, to ponder this, to find your way out of it. And so what you said is actually absolutely correct. People get depressed about being depressed. So if you turn that into the political realm and you say, gee, I really don't, I think, I get angry when I hear that the borders are a complete mess. I'm only using the borders. I could be using abortion. I could
plenty of
be
issues.
using economics. I could be using a lot of things.
High
But
taxes.
that's a high taxes. And so someone says, well, you should not be angry about that. And the reason you're angry about high taxes is because you don't want to share with other people. And that's what your problem is. Instead of wanting to give to the poor, you're a selfish person who feels, I work, I have a good job, I'm making money, and why should I have to share that? And there's really something wrong with you, and something wrong with the way you feel and think about that.
So they're projecting it all on you and making you the problem.
Making you an immoral person, a person who should feel very guilty and bad about the way you feel. So,
Which could turn you and make you depressed, and then if you're depressed, you can't do anything about it.
or you could say, you know what, I do need to change my thinking. I do need to realize that I'm a selfish person. I do need to feel okay about higher taxes. I do need to feel that we should have national medicine without any personal insurance anymore. I need to convert to what is the correct moral way to feel. And it's the conversion that I think is being worked on very strongly right now. Because when you change hearts and minds, you have control of a society. When you change a society to think that your political ideas are morally correct ideas, which is a lot of what the battle is about. But when you change that, now you have the obedience of the society to your political changes.
That's a lot of, that's why I love having Carl on, because he always gives you a lot to think about. But you know what? It helps me to understand, because America has been around for a couple hundred years. And when you see that I shouldn't say half the country, but a big chunk of the country, and a lot of young people, unfortunately, they're like okay with socialism. And I thought, how did we get here, and how do we get that? But what you're saying, it helps me to understand that a little bit more.
Well, if I'm a young person in my 20s and I sit in a college classroom and the professor, who is all-knowing, says to me, it's really morally wrong that we have poor people in our society. And the only way we can correct this immorality within our society, this basically broken society, this basically patriarchal society, is to realize that we have to change the system to provide economic support to those poor people. And so what you're doing is you're changing the way people believe and the way they feel about things. You're making a conversion. And once you make a conversion, then they're going to accept your political rule. They're going to accept that the political changes you want to make to the society are valid. And of course, in college, if you don't agree with the professor, you fail. So there's a little bit of pressure there but there is a kind of awesomeness about the professor, and they're brilliant and what they teach. And so the ideas that they teach are the correct and moral ideas.
And you can put them up on, a pedestal and do that. But that's why if you have self-acceptance, then I have, I'm not going to identify the person that I know, but when they were in school, they were smart enough and they recognized that the person, the professor, their instructor, was very liberal. So what the student would do that I knew, he told me, he says, I don't believe this way, what he's saying. I know that that's not wrong, because morally I don't believe it, but I really need my grade point up. So he would write papers and he would just adhere to that. But he was strong enough and he had his conviction that he said, okay, I'm just going to do this because I want my grade high. But how many kids are able to do that? Not everybody can do that. It's very dangerous, extremely dangerous. So I'm glad we're having this discussion, and I'm glad you're writing this book. So what do you tell the parents out there that are sending their kids off to college and off to university? Sarah's going to Grand Canyon University. She's going to a great school. and she's never been to a public school, government school, that I'll call it. So she has the, the advantage, and she's got a good brain too. We talked to her last week. She's thinking we might bring you on if Eric's still out there, and then we can talk to Carl as well. But what do you tell the parents out there to guide their kids and help their kids have that experience at the university?
Well, what I would say to the parents is to teach your child to be a self-accepting person. Teach your child that I'm okay. It's kind of basic psychological teaching. You can find it in any psychology book, but I kind of take particularly this viewpoint of learn to be self-accepting. If you're angry about something, if you're fearful about something, if you're unhappy about something, if you're happy about something, if you find something pleasurable, what your own experiences are, accept those experiences as valid experiences. You don't have to act on them. Some you may accept at one point and decide to discard at another point, but don't make your acceptance dependent on the teachings of someone else about how you should feel, right or wrong, about any issue.
I think that's good. It's good advice. And if somebody wants to contact you?
You know what? I'm devoted to writing now. Thank you so very much. But right now, if
you can
they
follow
can
him on
contact,
Facebook, though.
Yeah.
You can follow him on Facebook, and then
Yeah.
his book will be out soon. Yeah, it's all good. That's awesome. So we need to talk some politics. Want to talk some politics?
I thought we were talking.
I mean, even more, but I'm talking about some issues of the day and things that are going on. All right, good deal. So, of course, right now, our country, the Democrats have decided they're doing an impeachment inquiry on our president. I've got my Trump 2020 shirt on, doing that. I wanted to talk about the psychology of impeachment because I watch the polls, and I don't necessarily believe all the polls that I see out there. You talk about self-acceptance. I've been around long enough that I see things and I'm like, well, I don't know who was polled in that poll. Who did they actually talk to? How many people did they talk to? Because if you believe some of the general media, then most of America is like, yeah, go for it, do this. But what are your thoughts, and how is that affecting maybe culture and American politics?
Well, impeachment is all about psychology, isn't it? It's an endeavor to create a certain psychology within the society. And so what's the psychology that you want to create? The psychology that you want to create is that this person is invalid, that having this person around simply creates a lot of problems, that look at all the turmoil created by this person, and aren't there a lot of questions about this person anyway? So the whole impeachment situation is an attempt to affect the psychology of the American people in terms of the way they think about the president. And smear is kind of an overused word, but it's really to get people uncomfortable, so that when they think about the president, they think about him in a lot of uncomfortable ways. Gee whiz, I turn on the TV, this is boring, this is horrible, why don't they settle this thing? And knowing that we're near an election, to make people uncomfortable with the man in the White House, and to think, you know what, maybe as much as I like him, maybe if we were just rid of him, the country would get back to sort of our normal life again. So whatever political and legal games are played regarding impeachment, it's primarily a psychological, it's an attempt to create a psychology of division and discontent and sort of unhappiness within the society, so that we feel that we just got to change things. This is not okay. Even if we like this person, things are just so chaotic right now. It's not good. Now, hopefully, people will see through that. I happen to not believe the Fox poll, tell you the truth.
Well, and then
Excuse me.
Along those lines, I'm trying to remember who it was, but they were doing a registration fair or something, and they came across a lot of people who were saying, you know what, we're tired of this. I don't even, I'm for the president now, because like you say, they can see through it. And, I don't want to be a Democrat anymore. They actually changed the registration from Democrat to Republican.
And that, of course, is the danger with the impeachment strategy from a psychological standpoint, is that if people see through it, then they're not going to buy into it, because they're going to say, well, what's really going on here is you want to create something bogus in order to make me feel discontent, so I'll change my mind about what I think is okay. And I resent that. And you have a backfire reaction. And I hope that that's what's going on, that people are seeing through what the impeachment is about.
Well, and I hope too, I'm very hopeful about that. Now, we've never had a president like this before. This guy, he fights back. And then you've probably like watching him have done a little bit of psychoanalysis or something, because it seems like many times the Democrats, what they're accusing someone of, they're doing it themselves. And a lot of the theory out there is that they want to jump ahead because they know that, they could be in trouble as well. So they better throw the accusations first. And what is your analysis or psychology of Trump and the way he's handling this? I have a lot of confidence in him, because even though you think, wow, why is he saying that? Why is he doing that? He always seems to end up with a strategy behind it.
Well, I think he likes to scrap. And I think that's lucky, because they're giving him a lot of stuff to scrap about. But luckily, I think he likes to scrap. So I don't think he's going to be demoralized by having a fight on his hands. And I think that's good. I think that, and this is somewhat subtle, and I hope that the public sees it, is a lot of the things he's being accused of, in fact, is what the Democrats have been. I mean, the corruption of the Democratic Party has been overwhelming. And I will tell you this, I am a Trump supporter. Before Trump ran for president, I personally did not like him. I used to poo-hoo Trump all the time. And when he ran for president and started to express his ideas about what the country should be, about taxes, about jobs, about bringing the country together, about the military, I was converted by believing in what he thinks is the right direction for the country. So I think for the people that don't like him, you really have to separate Donald Trump from the direction that he wants to put the country in, because the direction is absolutely right on, and absolutely what we need to be doing, and absolutely the kind of corrective political experience that we need, irregardless of this personality that likes to scrap, which is okay too.
Right.
Because I find him so entertaining that it's just unbelievable. I just think that he's really just a lot of fun to kind of watch and go through all of these different, deal with all of these different balls that they throw at him, and how he dodges them or catches them or throws them back. So it's a lot of fun to watch that. But really, it's his political ideas that are the thing that we need to be doing right now.
And I have to say, and I think I mentioned this last week, so my friend Jesse Romero, who is a Catholic evangelist, he had just a great line. I keep repeating it because it's so good. He, as you said, a lot of us were not Trump fans from the beginning, we just weren't. And he said that Trump is a broken pencil that God is using. And you said it so eloquently and so right on, because you have to look at, he'll tweet out stuff and you think, wow. And then later on, he was right. He was right. That's right. He had it right. And we're so lucky because now we have that technology. Sarah and I were talking about technology last week. And it can be kind of bad sometimes, depending how it's used. But in this case, I really think that he's very effective tweeter. Do you call them tweeters? Twitter guy. His tweets are very effective.
Well, they are, and of course he has to use it because the media is so against him that he is not able to get his word out unless he's able to use Twitter and technology and Facebook in the way that he does. Because otherwise, if we were dependent on the New York Times and Newsweek and Time Magazine and the Washington Post, they've really become propaganda machines. I mean, they simply feed us a propaganda story. So it's the only way that he's able to talk directly to the people. Despite the criticism he gets, I think this is going to become a trend in American politics. I think you're going to see more politicians and presidents of the future using a technology where they feel they can directly contact people. And I think you're going to see, Pelosi is using it now. Pelosi tweets, Schumer tweets. These were people who in the beginning said, oh, this is terrible, it's unpresidential, it's not dignified, etc. And now they're doing it. So I think he's setting a trend, and I think future presidents will definitely use this as a means of direct contact.
And I think it's a good thing. I mean, it's like an advanced, the fireside chat, right? Was that Theodore Roosevelt? Mm-hmm. And, now, like you said, excuse me, I said Theodore. And you can directly talk right away. And not only can you just, they used to sit there at the radio and say their speech. So he tweets it out, boom, somebody can see that and respond immediately. You're directly, I mean, he's the president and you can actually tweet back and respond. I mean, it's fascinating, the world that we live in, that you and I have been able to see in our years of life. It's amazing.
Well, I think too, the presidential address, he hasn't used it yet, but that used to be such a big deal where the president, I think these rallies that he does replace the presidential address 100-fold, because he has a rally, and at a rally he's able to tell people exactly where he thinks we're at, exactly where he thinks we should go, and to connect directly with supporters. It's great television, and again, it's not quite the same thing as that Oval Office speech. I mean, Obama was a smooth operator, but he was a crook.
Well, and he had the teleprompter.
And
that's the difference too with Trump, because Trump, when he's out there, the first time I went to go see Trump, that's what kind of like, wow, he is talking to you. He's not sitting there and reading the teleprompter and reading the speech. He's just like, you know what, guys, I want to tell you this. That's how you feel about it, and that's why he's able to connect. Don't you think that's psychological?
Well, I remember presidents from Kennedy, and I loved Kennedy. I was really a kid when Kennedy was around, but I've never seen a communicator like Trump. I mean, to stand in a room of 15, 20, 10, 15, 20,000 people, and to have them feel that you are talking to them.
Right.
That is amazing.
And he does it so well. So I tell people, if you have an opportunity to go, I mean, you're going to have to stand in long lines and do that, but go, because that's what kind of sold me on him. I'm like, wow. It's believable, and he is a very, very good communicator. Okay, so I don't have a clock or anything. Do you have a watch, Sarah? Or can you check the time for us? You don't have a watch? You talk to the audience, and I'm going to go check your phone. How's that?
Oh, okay.
What do you want to tell them about? What kind of words of wisdom do you want to give them as a psychologist, a forensic psychologist? Sarah, you have a question for Dr. Carl?
Not at the moment.
Wow, see? We're just about out of time. Wow. Okay, so we're gonna wrap it up. Do we have to have anybody in here? No? Julie, are you still here? Come and do the last couple of minutes with us. Are you gonna know? You want to talk about Central City Radio real quick? Yeah, come on in here. So we'll just kind of stand.
You're standing?
Thank you, Carl. We have a few minutes left here. I'm gonna bring. You can stay here if you want. Just stay here. We're gonna stand. Come on back
I'm
here.
gonna stand over here.
Yeah. So the reason I'm bringing in my good friend Julian.
Hi, y'all.
Okay.
What's up?
And Carl knows Julian too. So when we started doing Chips N Salsa show, we started with Julian's station, Central City Radio. And I'm so happy and excited because it looks like starting next month, November,
Yes.
It's gonna be our 5th year anniversary, and Carl knows Julian from a long time back too.
Back then.
And
yeah,
we're
yeah.
gonna, we're also gonna do a show